You're listening to the Ropes and Riffs podcast with your host, John Kiernan.
It is so good to have you here on the show again with me. My name is John. I am a wrestling entrance theme song composer, and welcome, as always, to the Ropes and Riffs podcast, where we talk all about wrestling entrance themes with your favorite wrestlers, your favorite musicians, and your favorite wrestling entrance theme composers. And today, I'm going to be speaking with the one and the only Josiah Williams, also known as Wrestle And Flow. You may know him from his time at NXT. You may know him from his work that he's done with such acts such as Naomi and so many more. Naomi, Trinity when she was in TNA, as well as Taya Valkyrie. And we talk about all of that, including an entrance theme that we worked on quite some time ago, too. We talk about a lot of different things on the show. We talk about how, in this crazy world that we're in right now, you too can be a creator, and how you can start with just the basics and work your way up, and how you should always just give it a try. I love doing this. I love doing entrance themes, but it hasn't always been where I've had the gear that you see or hear on the show right now. I've started off with an iPhone, and I still use an iPhone and all this different gear. So it's a really inspiring conversation with one of the most inspiring, awesome individuals that I'm grateful to call a friend, and I'm grateful to call a guest on our show here. If you'd like to make a PayPal donation, you can check the link in the description here. And if you donate $10 or more, I'll go ahead and shout you out on the show coming up as well. And as always, I appreciate any of the donations that come through. It really helps the show and helps us continue to grow to an even greater audience. And talking about audience, you guys have been great with doing all the subscriptions over on all the different platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But if you haven't subscribed yet, I'm just going to ask you to head over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, or wherever you're listening or watching the show, and just hit us with a subscribe, hit us with a follow, whatever that specific outlet does. That was probably a ping with somebody saying, hey, I subscribed to the show. I hope it was, but if it wasn't, I hope they're having a lovely day as well. But also, if you're over on your favorite listening app like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, go ahead and drop us a comment, drop us a rating, and if you leave us a rating here on the show as well, I'll go ahead and I'll read it out on the next show. I love hearing from you guys. I love hearing who you might want on the show. Love hearing about the feedback that you've gotten from the show, hearing about all different entrance themes, and just having a great old time. I have a great time talking to people. I have a great time hearing your feedback, and I hope you have a great time listening to this awesome interview with the one and only Wrestle and Flow, Josiah Williams. Enjoy, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him as Wrestle and Flow. You've seen him all over the place in all different promotions. You've heard his voice all over the place. He is such the personality that not even Disney can deny. As you know, my guest today is Josiah Williams. Thank you so much for joining me today, my friend.
Yo, I am so glad that we could finally make this happen. We've been like sending these messages back and forth and just the timing and all of it. But I always believe that everything happens in the right time. So thank you for allowing me to even be here.
Absolutely. And it's one of these things where, even though we hadn't gotten to connect before, and even though we've been trying to line this all up, it's just the more time goes on, the more cool things you do, the more people you work with, the more we just get to talk about on the show. And
Yeah.
as somebody that has been in the entrance theme game probably even longer than I've been, in a lot of ways, you've been able to work with lots of different promotions, lots of different talent. The cool thing that I've always loved about your music also is the fact that you don't just do entrance themes for people. You also do what I would call more like tribute things to wrestlers as well, which is something that I don't see a lot of people doing. I see Montez doing it, I see you doing it, but you guys are really the two that don't just do entrance themes, but you also do tributes in a lot of different wrestlers too.
Yeah. I think that's how I got my start. Outside of just doing all this, I make hip hop music, Christian hip hop music, and in between those projects, I wanted to do something that would kind of just clear my head and get me out of like album mode or like whatever the specific project was that I was doing. And yeah, I just started trying to remix like hip hop songs that would have like a wrestling theme to it. I tried that, it didn't really work out. Then I tried like actually remixing the theme song itself. And yeah, I didn't approach it from the perspective of being a theme and something that they would necessarily walk down the ramp to, but just like showing some love. If you grew up with hip hop and especially like mixtape hip hop and just how Lil Wayne like in the 2000s would just get somebody's song, T.I. or whoever, and just make a verse to it. It wasn't official, it was just fun. And I think wrestling Mega Ran, Montezi, like you said, there's a lot of people who were kind of doing that. I just wanted to do it in a different way with like video elements and trying to do some of that stuff too. So it's a fun time, man. I love it.
And that's something too, is that you don't just do audio, and even over on your YouTube, you're like, it's an audio and visual experience. So you also understand how important the visuals are to the audio that you're putting out too.
Yeah. Presentation, I mean, is everything. And especially in a world where everything is so fast paced and you're trying to give the best product possible. I felt like I had inspiration from Smoke Dizza in the beginning because he was releasing these like mixtapes around like WrestleMania time. And I'm like, man, what if I like what would be my version of that if I were to try to do that? So I tried to just maybe package up 6 or 7 music videos at once. And I was like, well, that's not gonna give me what I need, right? Like people are gonna watch those or maybe watch one and then they'll be done with it. But yeah, I figured adding the visual element, especially because I love storytelling and I love being able to edit and try different things. And it wasn't even really that great in the beginning, but I just felt a connection to it and a passion to it. It gives the talent also something to look at and like a little highlight reel or a sizzle, just to see what they've accomplished too.
And that's the thing, is that's where you start too. You were just like, I wasn't really the most experienced, but I just started doing it. And I'm sure now you have way more experience with it too. And, if anyone is going to your YouTube or anyone is seeing and hearing all the stuff you've done, it's as pro as anything that anyone is putting out. And I think that's really important to a lot of people who talk about. So people ask, how do you get into entrance themes? But more in general, how do you get into creating content? How do you get into creating music? How do you create videos? All that kind of stuff. There's a lot of just trial and error. You can go to school for it, you can watch YouTube tutorials, but no matter what, you're still going to have a slightly different setup than other people. You may have different situations. You may have access to more gear. You may have access to less gear, less resources. But at the end of the day, a lot of it really becomes trial and error and just sitting there and go, you know what? I'm going to grind through all of those trials and tribulations, and we're just going to get better at it. And then you're ending up seeing what works best for you and then making that work in the best that you can too.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, like these videos, like the Undisputed Era video was the first one, and that was in an apartment in Peoria, Illinois, and it was against like the little what do you call those? The blinds, like the sliding
Yeah,
blinds
yeah.
with just like a random light and my camera on auto. Like I didn't know anything about, ISO and aperture and all the camera settings that make it what it's supposed to be. Like we just tried something and then I played around with some effects in Final Cut Pro. Like it was in no way anything professional. You know what I mean? Like I probably did that and then went to go wash dishes immediately after before starting to edit it. Like it starts out as just an idea, and especially at Disney now, with one of the areas that of the area that I work with is the Disney College Program, and they ask, what are some tips and things that you would have for people who want to just start making contents, even like at the parks, and I'm saying use your phone and even just get like a cheap Amazon light that's like 15-20 bucks and just see how much that little light can change things. So, at the end of the day, this is not homework. Nobody's gonna grade it, and it's not gonna be on a record or anything. Like you're just trying stuff, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, you grow from it. So
Yeah, I remember two things. One thing I heard early on in my career was that nobody cares about the gear you use; they care about what they see and what they hear, and it's so important too. And you may have seen this as a meme or as on Twitter or X, whatever. But Phineas, Billie Eilish's brother, posts. Everyone's like, "Oh, why do you record in your bedroom?" But I've also sat in $1 million studios where someone is figuring out why it doesn't work, and they just didn't plug in the aux cable. So
yeah, yeah,
it's totally true. And I remember when I was in college and I went to not Guitar Center, Sam Ash, because we were in Margate. And I remember that at that point I was trying to, start getting on my own content and all that. And I was like, man, how much money am I going to have to put into all this? And the guy behind the counter was just like, look into lighting, look into natural lighting, and get yourself a decent lighting system that's, it doesn't have to break the bank, but you can literally do so much on your phone. And a lot of people don't understand that you can get expensive cameras Sure. But you, like you said, you could use your iPhone. And that's been kind of the case for the last 10 years of iPhoneism. You can really get away getting good quality with that. And all you have to do is just make sure that your lighting is as strong as it can be. And then obviously over time, you upgrade based on what you want to do. But you can look everywhere and you see professional videos done that say shot on an iPhone. And you're like, how do they do that? And, you become a master of like those settings and different things. And I remember that when I started doing entrance themes, I had never even thought about doing entrance themes for, until like 2019, maybe 2020. But before that, obviously, I was such a fan of wrestling and I was starting to do like covers. And this was when NXT started to really take into bringing in Nakamura, Samoa Joe, all those guys. And I was just like, I want to create a version that's kind of like a metal, orchestral metal version of The Rising Sun. So I did that.
Yeah.
I shot it in my studio in my room, which anyone can obviously tell, and did a couple different takes, stitched it together, made the audio, and I thought it was pretty good for what I had. And in that, I was able to meet Kevin from It Lives, It Breathes, who's done it. Will Ospreay's theme. We've gone on
Nice.
to work together. Been able to meet just different people in the industry, and it's all just the video did okay, the music did
Mhm.
okay, but people are still referencing it today, and it's just like you just started by filming it and just figuring it out. And
Yeah.
you never know where it's going to take you.
And that's the beauty of it. Like, especially for so many of us who legitimately just like started online at home, trying anything to see if it would work and seeing one, the connection that it makes with the audience that, you're trying to reach. Two, the impact that it has on the talent that you're talking about and that you're playing for, you know what I'm saying? Like it's such a fulfilling thing when you see it. And even if it doesn't reach that, height, I mean, for luckily for us and in many other people's situations, it does turn into something and materializes into something. But even just the satisfaction of you get that mix and you're like, man, I'm proud of this. Like, I don't know if anybody's gonna hear this, but there is just it gives you something. It's almost like when, going to wrestling shows and you make that sign and somebody like, hey, I like that sign. Like it's just, well, thank you. It's just such a good feeling, and that's what I try to make with both the music and the video side. And then going back to what you said too, of like, you start with something like the phone, but and the investment that you make into your equipment. But the goal, of course, is to be able to upgrade those things and hopefully to make that money and to turn into something else. So it might start with the iPhone and then turn into a Sony or a Canon or a night, whatever your camera preference is. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's cool to see people, not just like us, but even just like illustrators and stuff, be able to live that out. It's a special thing.
What was that process like for you too? I know we've talked a bit about, that creative process and you can kind of get to, experiment with a lot of different elements and what you have at your disposal. But for you, what was that turning point where you said, you know what, I need to look into some different gear because, you do a lot of different things in media and to be able to have access to those things gives you even more ability to work with other people, make the content that you want to create. What was that turning point for you? Was it a specific project that you were working on, or did you say, you know what, I want to kind of go in this direction. And in order to do that, this is where I now need to get.
Yeah. I don't even remember what microphone I had to start out with, but I know it was garbage. I do know that. Whatever it was, it produced sound. It just didn't produce good sound. And I can't see right now because I have a light in front of my face, but I'm sure you might be using. It looks like it. The Shure like SM. I don't even remember what it's. The
Yeah,
Michael
very close.
Jackson
The
microphone.
MV7. Yeah, it's basically their
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
USB version of that. Yeah.
There somebody introduced me to that, and I was like, okay, how am I gonna even get that? And they gifted it to me. Um, and I'm like, okay, okay. So then I had to learn about like amplifying the sound and like what a cloud lifter is and all these different things. And it cost money. It did, but it was something that I knew and I believed that it would help me in the future. I had a Sony A6300, which is a good photo camera, does pretty well with video, but like professionally, it wasn't going to get me everything that I needed. So I think this was after getting released from WWE, I started working with Aleister Black, Malakai Black, Tommy in, whatever you prefer to call him. And like he's like, yeah, we're gonna lock in and just make a ton of content. And I knew that if we were gonna do this, that it was time for an upgrade. So I had to, make that decision. And that camera was a hefty price tag. But I mean, you know what you need to get where you want to be. And I believe that putting yourself in a situation to then generate the income or whatever it is that you need to do to recoup, I felt like it was going to work out. So am I going to go out and get $1,000 cinema camera right now? Absolutely not. No. Can I afford some good $200 lights to make that great and like a smoke machine or something? Yeah. So like you make the changes that make the most sense, and you make the changes and the upgrades that are going to help the people, like the clients that you serve, or like the people that you want to work with too.
Of course, yeah. And you brought up working with Malakai Black, and you brought up working with all the stuff that he's doing and was doing, and just all the things from where he is now and where he was. And, we can talk rumors. I have no idea about anything. And, but I do hope to see him back where he should be, which is on
I
TV,
would
because
hope
he is
that
so
too.
good. Yes.
Yes, yes, indeed.
And how was it working with Malachi Black? Because he does the Muay Thai, he does all the videos, he does the clothing company. And, as dark of a character as he portrays on TV, in every interview, he just seems like the coolest, most humble guy, just literally wants to just be a good person that can just kick you as hard as humanly possible and make you feel it. So,
Yes, all of those things are true. So we started working while he was preparing for the comeback at WWE in 2021. Oh, yeah, like 2020, 2021's around that time. And he had some ideas that he wanted to pitch to Vince. So we just spent a few days at the Performance Center just recording like matches and promos and just trying stuff. This was also at the same time, like shortly before that, Zelina Vega left and came back. I was like, It's so weird that nobody is recording this process of like she's getting ready to make this huge comeback. Why isn't there like a documentary team or anything like that?" So I just started kind of getting to know both of them and filming them. And yeah, it turned into a really cool process. And when we both were on the other side, he was like, "Look, I don't know where I'm going to go next, but I want to be able to prepare for that, and I want to have content." So we, like you said, Muay Thai, wrestling training. We did like some stuff with his clothing line, Black Mass. We tried like some cooking content, podcast stuff, music reviews. Like he had all these ideas, and he's like, "I don't know which ones we're going to keep." We did a short film that I didn't film, but I was like one of the characters in. He's a photographer. He's so creative, and he's just like, let's just see what we can do. And so even like last week, we were filming all these like training videos, like vlog style stuff that I'm sure he'll be able to share at some point. But like, there's so much in his mind, and it's kind of a reminder of like the stuff that I thought about, like for Wrestle and Flow. I want to be able to do all the stuff. How do I get there? And I'm thankful for both him and Zelina for allowing me to kind of just be a little part of their content journey and just, supplying what they need. And it's amazing to work with them because everybody puts on a character, everybody showcases what they want to showcase, as Disney would say on stage or as WWE would say in the ring. But, the superstars that they are doesn't even speak to the human beings that they are. And so it's cool to see.
and if I remember correctly, too, I remember that you were also in the videos before Malachi debuted in AEW. I forget if you were a doctor, but you were something in one of them.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really cool time. I got a, message from him saying like, I have this idea for a short film that I want to do. Would you be interested in it? And I think I told him no at first because, I walk this very thin line of like, who am I as both Josiah, as the Christian hip hop artist, as the wrestling guy? Like, okay, what do I want to do? And he just told me like, no matter what I do, I will always like protect you through it. Like I'm not gonna have you say anything that you don't want to say. I'm not gonna have you, like wearing anything you don't want to wear, or like even with all the Black Mass stuff. Like we have very opposite beliefs, but he's like, I just want you to be able to grow in your art. And of course I need the content, so I think it's pretty cool. I always tell people like I get to be the light in his darkness. We're very different human beings, but similar interests. And yeah, so that was just another cool example of like we just tried something and it really really worked, and it was able to translate into like the you know how there are certain series and movies where there's like a spin-off or like, you know, an alternate universe. And so when Buddy Matthews was able to do his thing, like that character had a little prequel moment. So there's a lot of cool stuff that came out of it, and just excited to create.
Yeah, and I think you touch on something too that a lot of us as creators start to speak to, and especially in wrestling too, because I've talked to Megaran about this because Megaran does also content for kids and does stuff for wrestling. I run a music school, and I'm in the podcasting industry too, and so it's kind of like you get to this point where you have these different buckets that you fill in your life, and you want to really be true to all of them, but you're kind of like, how far do I go into all those to where one thing doesn't negatively affect something else?
Yeah.
Especially when you work with kids, or as you said, you have a lot of faith that then can do a lot of different things. It's like,
Yeah.
where, at what point do you kind of have to put a stopgap on it and say, well, that may not impact this other thing in the way that I want it to? But the fact that I don't even know what to call him, but the fact that Malakai, I'll keep calling him because it's
Yeah,
my
yeah.
favorite version, because Malakai was so cool with that and just wanted to make sure that you were taken care of. That's the most important thing, is let's be creatives, let's have a good time, let's do things, and let's work together, but let's be respectful to each other too. That's super cool.
Yeah, yeah. And I think Mega Ran is a really perfect example of someone who can do a little bit of it all, from, you know, gaming to music to even just like the stage presence that he has, video content, streaming. And I like to think that he is a perfect way of showcasing like you can be who you are no matter where you go. And that's something that I take to heart, and which is why I look up to him a lot, because like in all of these different spaces, yes, I am Josiah, but like I have a different role to play. And I don't want to, like you said, mess up anything because I do this. I don't want it to negatively affect that. Everyone knows like I had two goals, WWE and Sesame Street. And somehow, some way, I want that all to work together. And so yeah, I like to think of these creative endeavors and like things as I want to be able to grow in all of them and do it in a way that's cool for everyone.
And I think you've continued to do that too. And I mean, you have so many themes that, you've had your name on. And one of the ones that always comes to mind first when I think of you is Taya Valkyrie's theme, right? And obviously, we'll talk about Josiah is the one that we worked on together too. But Taya Valkyrie's theme was, she left WWE as Frankie Monet, which I don't know. I don't know. But when she came back as Taya Valkyrie, I was always such a fan of her in Lucha Underground. And, again, anytime I get to shout out Lucha Underground in this show, I will, because I'm just like, that was awesome. And then to see her come back on Zicky Dice's show and then show up in AEW and see the music that you had worked on for her, it was such a different vibe than I think a lot of people had heard previously. And Frankie Monet obviously was a different character, but even coming from like Lucha Underground, and just to see and hear the lyrics that you wrote and the music that you wrote, kind of a little bit dubstep, hip hop, all those things. What was the conversation with Taya about, this is the theme that I'm putting together for you? Because I think one thing that I talked to different people in the theme writing space about is, I've always considered myself a composer, from the fact of, I will, if you ask me to sit down and write something, mostly it's going to be a metal song or like a melodic hardcore punk song. Like, that's kind of a style that sits well with me. But
Mhm.
a lot of the times as a composer, I'm like, oh, you need a jazz track, I'll do that. You need an orchestra track, I'll do that. But I feel like you have such a unique sound as Wrestle and Flow that a lot of people may come to you and be like, all right, cool, Taya wants this, but here's the sound that I'm going to portray. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it is still what Wrestle and Flow is. What was some of the
Yeah.
process of working with Taya on that?
So she came to me and said that obviously she wanted to do a track. And coming out of the NXT situation, we filmed a music video with her and the artist who recorded her NXT track. I don't think that music video ever came out, but it was just going to be something for fun. And I remember sitting there thinking like, okay, if we're going to try to do something, how can we live back up to that hype? Because it was the cool music video from what I remember filming at the Performance Center. And she said that she just wanted to take things like to the next level and for it to be something that people really connected with. And so I thought about like just, you know, revving the engine a little bit of like, okay, so how can we like right from the jump, like give people one, that sound that's immediately recognizable, but also like I want the song to feel like it's also taking you to the next level. You, the talent walking to the ring, and you, the audience, of like, okay, what are we getting ready to see? And so playing around with, like you said, the hip hop, the dubstep a little bit, like that kind of like electro side, but also incorporating the the drive, the literal like vehicular sounds and everything. Like I wanted to play off of that. And so it was also her idea to do the music video, and like she had the brain for it. She said, "I just want you to do your thing, and I want people to visually see us like taking off."
Yeah.
And it was so fun. I don't even remember. I know Johnny was in some of the shots like that we filmed. I
He
have
has
to
to
go back
be.
and
He
look.
has to
Yeah,
be.
yeah. But it was such a cool time. And she said, "Oh, this is what I want, but I want you to have your creative freedom as well. And I trust that." You're gonna give me what I'm looking for. And we were able to collaborate through the whole process. Even in the music video, she's like, there's little things that I want you to do. If you stand here, then I'll be able to move like this. Like she saw it in every aspect. And you don't always get that from people. Sometimes people are just like, oh, I want a song that sounds like Kingdom, like I
Yeah.
want that downstate track. And I'm like, okay, but that's Kingdom works because it's Cody, you know what I mean? Because it's
Yeah.
downstate. Like you have to find your own thing. And she does and did a phenomenal job of like, this is my thing and this is what I want. I just trust you to bring it to life a little bit.
And it's so funny too because you bring up downstate, and I'm grateful to call you and downstate friends at this point in our careers also. And I talk to you guys all the time about like what goes into an entrance theme, and like I was saying, I kind of come at these from a little bit of a different perspective, and I've always felt like I strayed away from lyrics. First off, because even though I have this deep voice that everyone is hearing now, I am not a singer to any capacity. And so I always bring somebody in, and for many of you who have heard me attempt to rap, it's an attempt. That's it. I won't even use the word rap. So like, I bring in people that are really good at that stuff. And for me, I was always just like, a lot of songs don't need lyrics. And my argument was, and kind of still is, oh, it's going to get in the way of like if you're on streaming, it's going to get in the way of the announcers, it's going to get in the way of things like that. But then I hear like what you guys are able to do so much in the downstate tracks, in your tracks, in the Taya track, in the Trinity track, in Jose's track. And I'm just like, man, I need to not do that. Like, I need to really focus in on that because the lyrics can really do a lot when it comes to telling a great story. And I feel like, you can tell a story of where someone has gone. In the case of Taya's theme, you're not so much painting this giant picture of her whole career. You're just like explaining who the character is. And I think that lyrically, it's more important than ever now, actually, in the industry to be able to have a theme that can really describe where someone is coming from, not just from like the music side, but also from what the lyrics are trying to convey. And most people know that when you're listening to music, a lot of what you're hearing is in the vocals too. And a lot of what you resonate with as humans is in the vocals. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
you knocked that one out for sure.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's always really, really, really cool to tell that story. Sorry. And I think with Wrestle and Flow, that was kind of my intention too. Like if you've never seen wrestling, I want you to be able by the end of this 1 minute video or 2 minute, whatever it is, to at least have a basic 101 level understanding of who this person could be or who they once were, whatever it is. So I tried to do that same thing with Taya. Like if somebody's watching and they don't know who you are or they don't know what this version of your character is, I want them to have a good understanding of that by the time they're done with the track.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think if you think of themes over time, maybe earlier themes didn't always have to have lyrics. But nowadays, I think because there's so many wrestlers and there's so many intricate stories, being able to have more lyrically driven themes gives you the ability to really separate people's careers. Because you can, as you said, you can go ahead and dive into this is where you were, this is where you are, or you can just be a full descriptor of who this character is. And, no one is an even bigger embodiment of that than Trinity, Naomi now, who just
Yeah.
wrestled Jade Cargill. Naomi's great. Naomi's always been great. And, you know, I'm just so happy, number one, that she's getting her flowers now. But I've said that many times over the years. Like, there are a lot of times where people underrate how good Naomi actually is. And then she does all the things that everyone knows she could do. And then people are like, oh,
Yeah.
Naomi's actually really good. And I'm sitting here like, yeah, she is. And she has been. She didn't just get good, she's been good. And
Yeah.
for me, it was cool to see her move out of WWE for a little bit, do some stuff over in TNA. And you wrote that awesome theme for her too. With Naomi, same question as with Taya Valkyrie. How did that come about? And then in terms of how she wanted to have her song, what was some of the thought process between you and her on rocking on that one?
Yeah, a bit more collaborative. She came to me and said, "I have this idea." I think she even said that she wanted to like do some vocals for it, like from the beginning. I want to be on this and I want to be a part of writing whatever we're gonna do. She said she wanted that kind of like Jersey Club, that Lil Uzi Vert song. I can't think of what it's called right now, but it was super popular at the time. And she's like, "I want that sound, and I want," because nobody in wrestling at that point had a beat that was very similar to that, but she wanted something that was like an evolution of the glow as well. So I'm like, all right, we can do that. That's pretty easy. And that's the first time that I think outside of Leo Rush that I've ever been like in a studio setting or like in the process with the talent. And so we sat there and we came up with some ad libs and some fun little things. And I gave her a little preview of my verse. I said, "This is what I'm going to do, but I want you to accent it." She knew that she wanted to be able to spell her name and for the crowd to be able to pick up on that. I think she also choreographed like to the name as well. So like once again, it's so crazy to see how people are like, "This, I know this is gonna work. I just need you to add some lyrics." Like that's all I need in this situation. And it was amazing. It's amazing, especially at that point in her life where, when you go through something and you're looking to find that joy again, and you're just trying to get to the other side of it, to be able to be a part of that and to help bring that to life while also being the light that someone needs, there's no greater joy than seeing that debut or that return, and in her case her debut TNA, and just the pure love and passion that came when she made that entrance. It was so, so, so cool. And so I'll always be thankful to her. We've made, I think this is the third song that I've done for her, but I always love telling her story, and I'll tell it as many times as I need to.
Yeah, and it deserves to be told too, and I think that with someone who is such a veteran in Naomi Trinity, we'll use Naomi now because of where we are in this timeline.
Yeah.
But with her, she's gone through so much. She's been part of the industry for so long. And I think that when you have that kind of tenure in one company, a lot of people don't expect you to do something else. You can think of everyone. You could think of Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks. You can think of Trinity. You can think of all these different people who end up trying to, be with one company for so long. And sometimes you have to leave to explore that other part. And with Trinity, I don't think that she ultimately needed to go somewhere else to get better, but I do think that when she left, she was able to spread those wings a little bit more. And like you said, showcase, hey, I'm not just good here, I'm good wherever I go. And I think coming back into WWE, it really helped showcase even more of who she is. And like you said, she's somebody that also mixes the visual with the oral. And so she knows, okay, cool, what I'm going to do for my entrance, the music has to hit with that. And you have a lot of talent who may just want a really cool theme, which is fine. But then you have a lot of other talent too who may have done TV before, who may be in elements where they know that side of production, where they're like, all right, cool, here's exactly what I'm going to do. Here's the gear I'm going to wear. In her case, being able to have all the glow stuff that she does, did all that kind of stuff. She knows what she's going for. She knows what she needs. And it's really cool when she can articulate that to you and be like, all right, cool, we're going to have the slow part of my name here, and then it's going to speed up, it's going to rev up, and then we're into it. And the rest is
Yeah.
history. So I love
Yep.
that.
I love it too. And I'm so happy for her. Like, Trin, we love you. Phenomenal.
Absolutely. And then we worked on a theme a while ago for Jay Sose. And I'm gonna keep getting his name wrong. I'm gonna pronounce it a bunch of different times, a bunch of
Yeah.
different ways. With that theme, that was one that when I sent it to you, you were just like, this is really cool, but it's not something I've done before. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's not a style I've done before either. It's a style, I guess, like called grime from like the UK. And it's a cool kind of blend of different styles using different instruments. For me, when I sent it to you, I'm just like, Josiah can do anything. Okay, he's gonna knock it out of the park as you did. But when I wrote it, I was just like, okay, I want to make sure that there's a beat. I want to make sure that it's kind of got a little bit of this glitchy kind of feel, but it's a little bit slower paced too. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like it's fast while it's slow, but there's all these other instruments going on. And then you were able to layer in that Ready for War. And I'm just like, it's perfect. It's exactly what it is. So the gang vocals did very, very well. For you, I'd love to hear a little bit from you about, because this is kind of like us talking about, oh, we workshopped this one together. How was it when I sent you that one and you were just like, what is this theme that we're doing? Don't know.
That's exactly what it was. That's the word for word. Yeah, it's different when, I'm watching any of the shows and I see somebody that I'm like, man, I wanna create something based off of this person. And I have that drive to do it. And I'm able to I know the story, or I at least know what I want to do. In this situation, obviously it's like, okay, I'm not as familiar with this person, or sometimes like not at all familiar with this person. So that gives me a chance to do a little bit of a deep dive. But if you add that layer into also, so you're not familiar, but you're also like, you don't use this style, or you're not similar, you're not used to this style. So it was like a two for one. I'm like, okay, all right, let's see what we can do. But I always believe that any challenge is worth at least trying. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And somebody else will get their moment. But like I think I was ready for the challenge and I wanted to be able to tell that story. We were able to do something that neither one of us had done yet. And I think it elevated us at that time to be able to like, all right, so what's next? What are we gonna do? So I'm thankful that, I even had a chance to be able to do that with you. And hopefully it's the first of many more.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's one of those rise to the occasion kind of things too, I think all of us will always have like that parent style that we talked about. And, you'll always have that thing that you feel comfortable doing. And when a talent comes to you or someone says, "Hey, I want to go in this direction, I want to do this," you can either say, "You know what? This is not something I'm comfortable with." And you have to also kind of know how comfortable you feel being uncomfortable and how comfortable you feel going into that unknown and being like, "All right, what can we do?" Just kind of jumping in head first and being like, "All right, cool, no preconceived notions, no anything else. How can we really create what we want to create here?" And I feel like with both of us, we both went into it with that. And for me, and I'm sure for you too, whenever you hear a talent go, "Oh my God, this is amazing. This is great. I'm so jazzed. I'm so amped about it." It just makes you feel happy too. And then when you see it being used, you're like, "Oh, even better." And for me, with me not being as familiar with that style, going and giving something to both you and him, being able to see how excited everybody was about it, I was like, wow, that's really cool. And here I was sitting being like, I don't know how we're going to go ahead and do this, but we did it. And it sounds
Yeah.
cool. And he's still using it to this day, which, for longevity's sake, I'm always very happy about that. And I actually want to tie back to Trinity for a second, too, because you said you've worked on multiple themes with her. And I think that's really important to have been able to have done, too. I use a lot of the work that I've done with Mercedes Martinez. We've worked on a couple of her
I
post
love
WWE
Mercedes
videos together.
Martinez, man.
Yeah,
I
she's
love her
so
so
good.
much.
She's so great. And like even outside of wrestling, she's just literally like the nicest person, one of the coolest people. And, I always hate doing that because I feel like I'm burying the fact that she's just a killer in the ring. But dude, she's great. She is.
Yes.
And being able to be somebody that's worked on multiple themes for one talent or a couple talents, it becomes one of these things where it's like your sound goes with them. If you think about, I'm gonna get his name wrong, but Warren, who did like DX, the voice for DX, right?
Oh,
He
yeah,
then
yeah.
he then went and did Triple H's theme, right? When before he did the game and everything. And it's just cool to be able to say, like, oh, there's that little tie-in, that little connection between this person worked here, now it's here. It takes that evolution to the next level. And that talent from the previous theme, from the previous part of the evolution. So you get the opportunity to take some of those things and move them in as well. I think it's really special.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. I think that's a really, really good point. I even think about when Edge at the time, when he started the Judgment Day and he was able to use, why is the band's name escaping me right now? Alter Bridge.
Alter Bridge, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like just how the character evolves, but still being able to hear a piece of that sound, I thought that was so, so cool. Like, and so yeah, there are certain people that, I hope to continue being part of their journey, but I'm one of those people who I don't want just my voice to be the only voice on the show. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm glad that I have opportunities, but I'm also glad that it's not just oversaturated or that, there's so much talent. And I think AEW does a really good job of showcasing, like in the past, of like, there's so many other rappers that talk about wrestling, and there's so many people who are on the metal side, and like Ruckus has even brought in people who do like orchestra based things, right?
Yeah.
There's music is so big that you can go in all types of different directions. And I think wrestling is at a point now where there's too many opportunities to just have the one guy or like the three guys or whatever. So I love it. And I think that we all in different aspects are able to have like a little piece of the puzzle. And it's just cool to see.
Yeah, and I think Mikey Ruckus is somebody who, you bringing him up, is somebody that is not even afraid to tap onto different people too. I've been grateful to work on Sting's theme, not Sting's theme, but when they did the Sting EP for his retirement, me and Roy ended up working on the Surfer Sting theme. And there have been a couple of my works and your works that have gone through AEW. And it's so weird to say that because it's kind of like they have the guy who does it, and yet he'll reach out to people and be like, hey, can I get you on this? Or, if you've worked on something for somebody, if all of a sudden him and Tony approve it, then all of a sudden it is up on the show. It's just
Yeah.
cool to be able to see, like you said, wrestling being in this landscape now to where there is that collaboration, a lot of reaching across the aisle and saying, hey, could I do it all on my own? Sure. But I don't. And I
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
end up saying, hey, having more talent and having more people involved in the industry, and even you did Willow Nightingale on Who We Are, which is, again, just a banger track there too. And Willow's awesome. But being able
Yes.
to see
Yes.
those opportunities show up and be able to grow the people that are able to, put music into the wrestling ecosystem, that can't be understated. Now, I know that I told you that there was one question at the end that I ask everybody. And for those listeners, you know what the question is. If you could choose 3 songs to put on a Spotify playlist that represent Josiah Williams, what would those 3 songs be? And they don't just have to be songs that you've released. They could be anything from throughout the ecosystem. Now, I say 3. Some people have given me 5. Someone gave me 6. Someone gave me their whole discography. But I think 3 is a nice solid number. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, so I'm gonna play it a little bit differently and not use my own.
nice.
But there are a few tracks that have stuck with me just throughout my time uh on Earth. So Broken Dreams, Drew McIntyre's theme song. I believe the band's name is either Shaman's Harvest. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but the Broken Dreams theme song to me was everything. It told the story, but it had the power. It matched the character perfectly. No notes. I would change absolutely nothing about the song. And WWE did a really good job of like, okay, they like this. Let's hold on to it. Let's not give it to them right away. Like, let's make them search the internet, even though we know it's not there, and try to, they played it so perfectly. And when it did eventually drop, like I listened to it at least 6 trillion times in a row back to back. I love that. I love that 100%. So that one on the more modern era side, I am going to say Sting's theme from AEW.
Great theme. Yeah.
So powerful. So we had the first ever AEW like music live performance, and Ruckus obviously headlined that. I got to open up for him, but hearing even just in the rehearsal, like dun, 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 I was like, it's happening. Oh my gosh, it's happening. It is such a powerful theme to me. One that I will always love, and just like I haven't had a chance to even talk to him about like creating that and whatever, but so cool. And then voices for Randy Orton. Jim Johnston, just hearing there's a video where he talked about like him playing it just like on acoustic and coming up with the lyrics and what he was going to do for it. And so knowing that he just had this acoustic track and that somebody was able to take that and turn it into even more than what he envisioned it to be, like that's just, I don't know. That's special. And I think even now, what Randy's 20 something years in, and when he goes, whether it's overseas or here domestically, when they hear that theme song, one, they lose their minds. And then after that comes, like, it's not even a calm down. It goes from the crowd pop straight into now we're singing this together. And this is going to be a moment for each and every one of us. And it's almost louder than the crowd pop itself. That is special. And I will always believe, whether he is a face or a heel, that song plays perfectly no matter where you are.
And it's funny
Those are the
too,
three.
because if you watch that video where Jim Johnson is talking about, yeah, I wrote it on acoustic guitar, you can understand 100% where he's coming from, like that whole brooding kind of like that dark acoustic kind of vibe. You can totally see where he's coming from, and it would have worked. But then when you hear what Rev Theory did, and they expanded it into the track that it was, like this heavy driving track and everything, it's just you can't envision anything better for Randy Orton. I
Yeah.
think there was a report that came out a while ago that was like, "Oh, someone tried," and he was like, "Nope." So I mean, that's not even talking bad about anybody else. It's just you got the theme. That's the theme.
Yeah.
That's the theme. But
Yes.
yeah,
And there's
those are
even like they've released like a 20, I don't even like a 20-year anniversary version of the song where it like has even more drive, which I didn't know was possible. They also did like a dubstep theme and all this is just on Spotify. I don't know if they're ever going to use it for anything, but like I even listened to those and they're different layers of the same song, and I could see how that would still be able to tell his story in ring. It's just special to me, man. It's amazing to see.
yeah, I love that. And those three songs, I'm just like, man, those are good choices. You choose
Yeah.
such great things. You do such great things. And that's why I'm happy that we were able to sit down for a little bit and have you on the show. It's been such an awesome time chatting with you, my friend. And, this will be the first of many, obviously. And I'm just excited to have been able to chat with you for a little bit. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Man, it is an honor, and I truly do thank you. I'm sorry that we didn't make this happen earlier, but like I said, now is the perfect time. And I'm gonna say this before we close this interview. Hopefully, if everything goes right, by the end of even just a couple months from now or like into the fall, we should probably do this again because there's gonna be some fun things, hopefully, that we can have another fun conversation about pretty soon.
Absolutely. I would love to. Yeah, let's make it happen. Of course.
Perfect.